Recorded. Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Aisha El-Amin, and I welcome you to Masjid Al-Taqwa's Taleem this Sunday. I bring the Taleem to you with gratitude on behalf of our resident Imam, Imam Tariq El-Amin, and the Taleem Committee, which is myself, Dr. Lionel Allen, and Dr. Gloria Bashir. We are recording this session. So please feel free to look on our YouTube channel, Masjid Taqwa YouTube channel, for this Taleem, as well as the other Taleems and all of our Jum'ahs, to get that knowledge from the Masjid Al-Taqwa family. I am honored to introduce our guest today, Imam Dr. Bashir Ali. He serves as the Midwest Section Convener and National Convener of Imams in association with our community of Imam Wardeen Muhammad. He also has been the resident Imam and president of the Muslim Education and Community Association, also known as Mecca, in Peoria. So he's not far from us. He's been doing that since 1993. He became a member of the Nation of Islam in 1970, and since 75, he's been a student of Imam Wardeen Muhammad, in addition to his other responsibilities as a resident Imam. So he serves in leadership in multiple spaces, and he's also served as a state and federal prison chaplain. He grew up right here in Chicago and went to the school that I have invested so much of my professional career in, and my education at University of Illinois. He went in architecture, and he also received his doctoral degree from Global Evede Seminary and University. And so today, I'm really excited to hear about some of the programming and leadership education that he has been leading on in our community. We are very blessed to have him in our community as one of our leaders, and I'm going to hand the floor over to him to do some more introductions and then kind of get into today's Taleem. Before I do that, I want to remind you that if you have questions throughout, please feel free to put them in the chat. And we will make sure that we get to those questions, or you can also raise your hand and we will just call on you, inshallah. So Imam, please take the floor.
Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister, Dr. Aisha, and believers of Masjid Al-Taqwa in Chicago. It's always a pleasure and honor to touch base with our brothers and sisters, particularly so close to home, my hometown in Chicago. It's a really, we're very honored to come and talk to you today on a very, very important topic. And when Imam Tariq talked to me or touched base with me, he was doing it as a follow-up to a conversation we've had with the imams for a while. Over the last 5 years, we've had these conversations, not only locally, but in the Midwest as well as nationally. And so what I'm going to do today is share with you some information from the conveners of imams on some strategic conversations we've had and how that has manifested in a new and exciting program from our community. So we're going to do three things. We're going to have a brief conversation. I'll share some PowerPoint slides with you, kind of setting the table or laying the foundation on a strategic level. We'll ask Dr. Aisha to play a 27-minute clip of an overview of a component of our program. Our program has 3 components, so we'll talk about one component of that program. Then, inshallah, we'll spend the remainder of the time kind of answering your questions and having discussion on the fullness of the program and maybe drilling down in some areas that you have some interest in. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and start with our strategic overview. And inshallah, you'll be able to see this. I hope, pray Allah, we had a discussion earlier.
Yeah, we see it.
Great. Great. Inshallah, I'm trying to say. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Very good. So with that, let's share with you some current challenges. As I've said before, over the last 5+ years, we've had some discussions at our imams conferences and with our community leaders nationally on a number of strategic issues impacting our community. And I'll briefly highlight them right now. community in transition and natural progression, assessing the culture of a masajid and a community, generational engagement, cultivating new life, realizing the mission and vision, and leading and governing with integrity and competence. So let's try to maybe spend a few minutes on those issues and just briefly summarize them. Part of the challenge that we're facing right now is that we have a community that's evolving. We have a 90+ year history. And one of the challenges that we have relative to that history is maybe to allow, let me show this slide and then we'll talk about that in detail. We have a demographic timeline. That means that if you look at the top graphic on that particular slide, that is a natural, what we call population pyramid. And in a natural population pyramid, that happens to represent the population of the world in 2015. You have a larger population of younger people and a smaller population of older people. The top represents a graduation of age over time. The bottom numbers represent younger population. So in a natural population pyramid, you have more younger people in a population, particularly in most societies. And as people age, they die off, and pretty soon, as they reach over 100, there's almost nobody. That happens to be the opposite in our community. We have an inverted population pyramid. In most of our masajid and many of our communities, we have a situation where we have more older people involved than younger people. So the bottom graphic really kind of is a symbolic representation of what's going on in our community. So we want to address that challenge. The discussion we've had over the last few years is we focused on several areas. Are we inviting to diversity? Do we have an inclusive shura? And do we promote and nurture intergenerational cohesion? I can say with pride that when I looked at your website, I was very proud to see your shura on your website. I saw the beautiful people involved. You have a beautiful intergenerational mix. That's the model. And so I want to pat you on the back as a community, because you really kind of represent where we want to be as a larger national community. Next thing, are we engaging everyone in our community? Do we have a healthy intergenerational engagement? And so if we don't, what are the strategies we need to take to make that happen? So does a culture of our local community, is it inviting to everyone? Is it inclusive of everyone? Do we have everyone's voices? And one of the things that we've discussed, and this is all over the country, and I've heard some beautiful anecdotes. This thing about killer cultures, and I'll give you an example. And I won't tell you what masjid, but it is in the Midwest, and it's not Chicago. But one imam told me that, when people come in, people are so invested in what they've been doing for years and years and years. When younger people come in with ideas, some of the older folks kind of squish the ideas or minimize what they say, or trying to, oh, we've done that, why are you introducing this thing? Well, we may need to have that conversation, because it's a new day and a new time. If you want everyone's voice, everyone to be engaged, maybe we need to expand our thinking and do things different. So it's almost natural for sometimes people to want to do things the way they've always done them. But a part of leadership is making sure that we're progressing, we're moving forward, and that everyone's voice is heard, and that we focus on that next generation of leaders and nurturing their development, listening to what they have to say and nurturing their development. Do we motivate, inspire, and engage the talent of our community, and particularly the talent of everyone, right? Do we understand the social transformation mission of Al Islam? And are we meeting the needs of that younger population relative to that? And last but not least, are we developing succession plans in our communities to make sure that we have a clear line of succession for our leadership? That doesn't happen all over the place. As a matter of fact, we have several places throughout our country in which we have imams in their 80s with no one behind them to come behind them to take their place. So this is a real challenge nationally. So with that being said, I'll stop and share at this point. And inshallah, we will ask Dr. Aisha to play our video. We're going to do a video overview of part of our program. And while she's queuing that up, I'll just say this. We've created an Islamic training and development program really to kind of address the issues I just named. And we've been working on this program for 3 years with a team of scholars throughout the country, pray to Allah, and engaging people. We just had a national webinar which we introduced the program. So inshallah, we'll play the video clip of one of the components. It's a 3-part program. I chair the community leadership team, and inshallah, we'll play a portion of what that curriculum is about. But it's a 3-part program, and we'll talk more after the video about the entire program. Thank you, Sister Aisha. Assalamu alaikum and welcome. My name is Imam Dr. Ali, and today we want to introduce our Islamic Leadership Training and Development Program Community Leadership course. As you know, this is a 2-year program, and the course has 2 parts. In year 1, we will cover theory and conceptual development. In year 2, we will cover skill development and application. Today's presentation will cover weeks 1 through 40 for course 101, and we will do a brief introduction for course 102. Our first 10 weeks lays the conceptual foundation for our course. We start off with course introduction and syllabus review. Then we will have a brief history of our 90-year community development. The remainder of our first 10 weeks, we will explore the 5 essential elements: the who, what, where, why, and how of community leadership. Our introduction will examine the unique features of our program, including our purpose, background, and approach. As you know, our program purpose is to develop a new generation of imams and community leaders with the necessary knowledge, skills, and abilities to successfully carry our community into the future. An essential element of our course is recognizing the genius of Imam W.D. Muhammad and him as Mujahid for the common era. We understand that our program origin lies in the Imam's vision for leadership training and development beginning in the year 2000. Finally, this course will explore about 100 key concepts for Islamic community leaders from the Quran, creation, and the tafsir, language, thinking, and logic of Imam W.D. Muhammad. Our learning activities will be designed to reinforce the attributes of curiosity, love of learning, critical thinking, creative solutions, and natural free thinking, all modeled by Imam W.D. Muhammad. We will attempt to bring the tafsir of Imam Muhammad to life. In Surah 3, Ayat 104, Allah says, Yamaruna bil Maruf. And Imam translates this as instruct by the good standards of excellence or goodness. He further says instruct upon what has been established as a known principle. And he uses the concepts of instruction, standard, and standard principles in his translation. We translate this Maruf concept into education and training as world-class standards, best practices, and model programs, including our course design principles, our use of adult learning principles and adult learning styles, and best practices for presentations. Finally, our education approach will respect the life experience and accumulated knowledge of our adult learners. As we move into our instructional phase, we will examine our 90-year evolution, including our community and leadership evolution and development, and our current community development challenges. We will discuss the 3 stages of our community development from 1930 to the present. We will also discuss our leadership evolution from ministers to imams and how we govern ourselves. Finally, we will review our current community development challenges, including our development and natural progression, assessing our culture, generational engagement, cultivating new life, and how we lead and govern with integrity and competence. We will use the remainder of our first 10 weeks addressing the who, what, where, why, and how of community leadership. Who are we? Imam Muhammad said we are a new creation. This is a foundation concept with its origin in the Quran. Allah gives us a concept of khalqin jadid, a new creation. And Imam Muhammad defined it in 4 dimensions. He said, we are a new creation from our African American experience, from our Islamic experience. He referred to himself as a new creation. And in conjunction with this concept, he used a concept of a new people and said, Allah is forming a new people upon our original nature. He is raising us upon our fitra, and we are receiving the communication of the Quran and Muhammad's life his way. We are not just a living organism, we are a developing organism. And there's a process, there's a design, there's a scheme, there's a system and an activity that's following a plan. These concepts are profound and have implications for our development. Inshallah, our course will explore them. We also identify the what, beginning with community and leadership as mates. We will explore the symbiotic relationship between community and leadership. We will also examine the Quranic and natural foundations of community and leadership. And our discussion will include the dimensions of Islamic leadership, including the essential concepts of character and integrity, competence, and compassion. Inshallah, we will also examine the different leadership styles, which is un-Islamic. How do we differentiate among them? Which one or combination of styles is a model for us? Another major dimension of leadership is communication. So we will explore key concepts of leadership communication, starting with words make people. Where did this concept come from? Quran, Ar-Rahman, Alama Quran, Alaka Insan. He taught the Quran and created the man. So we will explore the power of language, leadership and the truth, the importance of communication as a leader. Our direction is also important. And the word leader means direction. So Imam W. Muhammad said the leader is supposed to know where we are going. Allah gives us direction in Quran, so we will examine several ayat, starting with Itina Sirat al-Mustaqim. That is on the straight way. That is on the straight path. Imam Muhammad said Sirat al-Mustaqim means going straight up. Its path goes up. And we know this Mustaqim is derived from the word Alma, which means to stand or to rise or to aspire. In order to stand, you must plant our feet. And so Allah also tells us in Quran that He has caused us to grow from the earth a progressive growth. This concept of growth in the Quran for this particular ayat, 71:17, comes from the root word nabata in the Quran. And it means both inanimate and animate growth, symbolized by a plant or a tree. So Imam Muhammad makes a connection. He says, God says in the Quran that he has created you as a plant. He created you to grow in steps or in phases. And he uses the analogy of a seed or a sprout or a stem or branches. And it finally achieves symmetry. It balances itself, a picture of balance. And he says, it says this has definite patterns of symmetry. It goes downwards and upwards and outwards. Downwards for support and stability. Upwards for self-development and upward for charity. This is a profound concept and picture for our development. A third example of direction in Quran is in Ayat 3:104. Allah says, وَتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ. Let there be from you, plural, a community, singular. Let there be from the plurality and the plurality of your interests, commonality in community structure. And this establishes the Muslim community life. This ayat is a command for us to establish our community life. So Imam Muhammad says, we have to have Ummatul Islamiyah, following the Quran and the life of the Prophet. That's where we are going. We're created to go there. We have to go there. From this ayat, we get our mission and destination. So this destination reflects our purpose. And achieving our purpose, we must develop Muslim community life. Therefore, we will discuss our community development agenda, including the 4 birds. We will close out our first 10 weeks with a review of the truth and the signs. Al-Haq and Ayat. And we will examine Imam Muhammad's tafsir on the first revelation. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaqa. Imam Muhammad said Allah is using revelation to connect Prophet Muhammad back to the creation. This is another ayat with profound implications for our consciousness and our development. This will lead us into a review of the systems of knowledge, including the natural sciences, in conjunction with Islamic sciences, human history, and human development essentials. So in our next 10 weeks, we will examine the signs and the sciences. Allah tells us in Quran, Inna fi asamati wal ard la ayatin lil mu'minin wa fi qalbikum. Indeed, within the heavens and the earth are signs for the believers, and in the creation of yourselves. And Imam tells us, everything you see out there are signs, ayat. All are created by Allah, as well as his own self, that made those people scientific. It made them come into science. The revelation made them like this. It made them scientific. So, alhamdulillah, it says, it directed them to study the order of the skies and the earth and all life, including our own selves, and extract from it the ilm of the science and the knowledge and the rahmah and the mercy. So we're going to cover these additional concepts from the Imam's thinking in conjunction with this thinking and his tafsir. Creation, the first book, macrocosm and microcosm. Man and the universe are mates, and the cosmic man. This logic will lay the foundation for the exploration of our connections to Allah's creation. Another profound concept with profound implications for our development will be the Imam's thinking on the Quran, Surah 30, Ayat 30. Fitratullahi, Allah's natural pattern. The Imam said he has established man on the order of the pattern found in the universe. As a result, we will study the 5 universal principles of the fitra. Why is this important? Imam Muhammad says, Human beings begin as thinkers. We all begin as thinkers. We all begin with patterns of thinking. Our thinking takes patterns. And if we do not have an orientation that has its source in matter, in the real natural world, the natural creation, then our patterns are faulty from the beginning. So he says, when they are blessed to come back to the original nature, the original pattern in man's creation, then they can light the world. But if you come back to your universality, which is your original nature, you can light the world. Once again, from our previous discussion, Imam says, Allah is forming a new people upon our original nature or upon our fitra. He is raising us upon our fitra. And we are receiving communication from the Quran and Muhammad's life his way. This progression will help us establish the connections between the fitra, the signs, and the sciences. Another very important concept in the Imam is the idea that language of science is really also the language of religion. But they have separated the two, so it's hard to make the connection. Allah, we say in Quran, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, praise be to Allah, the God and evolver of systems of knowledge, of all systems of knowledge. With that essential foundation, we will explore the systems of knowledge and connections of Allah's creation. This includes the truth and the signs in the heavens and the earth and in ourselves. We will start with the natural sciences and the origin of creation. We will examine the big concepts from big history, such as the unity of creation. As Muslims, we refer to the origin of creation as fatara. Fatara. And this fatara we know means to create out of nothing. The language of science says everything, all matter, energy, space, and time originated from nothing. Let's remember Imam Muhammad's statement. The language of science is really also the language of religion. The language of science is also the language of religion. So we will study our beginning and progression. We will study the signs of the heavens, samawati, and of the earth, we will study the progression of life from the sculpting of the earth through Earth's transformation to the emergence of life forms, from stage to stage, to an explosion of new life, to the Jurassic Age, to ourselves. And finally, in our exploration of the study of the heavens and the earth, we come to the conclusion from the study of science that everything on the great tree of life is connected to the past and each other. So science tells us these are the natural connections. Our Deen tells us that there are universal connections in the concept of Tawheed, meaning the oneness of Allah, the oneness of creation, and the oneness of humanity connected to creation. The language of science is also the language of religion. In our third quarter, we will study the signs in ourselves, the natural human sciences, human history and civilization, and examining human nature. As we examine the signs in ourselves, we will highlight 7 measures of human development, from our ability to adapt and change, our higher capabilities for problem solving, individually and collectively, our creativity and innovation, our communication and symbolic language, our special capabilities for collective learning and social organization, and finally, our unique expressions of spirituality. our ability to transcend, transform, and aspire, our need to connect to a higher reality. In our exploration, we will also explore two studies, change of skin color and the importance of social organization. We will also spend 2 weeks on the development of human civilization, how civilizations have developed universally across all cultures and continents. The last 5 weeks of this quarter, we will examine the human nature from 10 perspectives: the fitra, Imam W. Muhammad's posts and insights, dimensions from Quran, elements and expressions in Quran and creation, manifestations in creation, the ancient symbols of the soul and the human nature, the material nature, the abstract nature, the material abstract dynamic, the material abstract dynamic in the community life. This will include Quran, creation, and the thinking of Imam W. Muhammad. 2 concepts on the human nature from Imam W. Muhammad are material and the abstract that we had just quoted. These are also in Quran. Allah tells us, He gives us 2 pictures in the first revelation of Quran. The picture of Khalaqa min alaq, created us from the clock, and alama bil kalam, and taught us the use of the pen. This represents the khalaq, the alaq represents the clock, and the use of the pen is really representative of our abstract nature. From the clock to the use of the pen, the material and the abstract, in conjunction with Imam Muhammad's thinking on the human nature. Inshallah, we will conclude our first 40 weeks with a discussion of the African origins of civilization, African civilizations, and examining the elements of the African American experience. As we examine the African origin of civilization, we will be examining the evolution of the 3,000-year-old civilization of Egypt and Nubia, from its beginning through its maturity and decline, and we will finish with the connections between Egyptian science and technology and their spirituality. We will also examine African civilizations, beginning with the early civilizations of Northern Africa, including the great Muslim empires and civilizations of Northern and Western Africa. We will have leadership lessons from these African civilizations, including economics and trade, government, culture, education, science and technology, and architecture. We'll bring it home the last 4 weeks when we examine the elements of the African American experience, beginning with the African slave trade, including its history and development. We will also examine the institutions and lessons of slavery in culture, government, and economics. We will continue our journey to America and examine the legacy of 1619, analyzing those American institutions that established and evolved white supremacy. Finally, we will connect the dots and re-examine this concept of a new creation. We'll be using our 7 measures for human development of adapting, problem solving, creativity and innovation, communication, collective learning, social organization, and spirituality to measure our development as African Americans. We will conclude with the wounds and the legacy from our human and African American experience, our early Muslim slave experiences, our Nation of Islam wound, and 33 years of teachings and preparation of Mujaddid Imam W. Muhammad. From our 40-week journey, we should have a better understanding of ourselves and our direction and our purpose, including over 100 key concepts for community leaders from the Quran, the creation, the language, thinking, and logic of Imam W.D. Muhammad. We will conclude today's presentation with a brief introduction and overview of our course 102, Skill Development and Application. We will begin our second year with a leadership review of our community. We will follow that with an examination of this Islamic leadership principles, including the leadership qualities of Prophet Muhammad. In our second quarter, we will begin with adult learning and the Maruf principles. We will then spend considerable time examining the principles of Islamic community governance and organization development. This will include establishing Islamic democracy, developing communities through Amarahum Shurbainahum, strategic leadership, strategic planning and implementation for Islamic organizations, effective meeting and communication strategies, and conflict resolution. In our third quarter, we will apply the principles of fiqh and the thinking of Imam W.D. Muhammad to the 5 pillars. And we will utilize what we've learned in weeks 1 through 20 and integrate these concepts with the other 2 program components of the Islamic sciences and the Imam W.D. Muhammad knowledge body. This will involve group discussions, research and study, and group presentations. Our class will also participate and analyze and critique the group presentations. In the final 10 weeks of our 2-year program, we will demonstrate the knowledge of the major duties of imams. This will include weekly presentations with follow-up application assignments in the areas of khutbah and Taleem development, including nikah, Islamic relationship counseling, janaza, dawah, including community outreach and social media, and community representation. This concludes a summary and overview of our ILTDP Community Leadership 2-year program. We'll be more than happy to answer any question that you may have about our program. Shukran, peace, and blessings. Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Wow, that you gave us a wealth of information there, ma'am. A lot of exciting things to address within that class. It's like jam-packed with information. I have a few questions to warm us up, and I encourage the believers to either raise your hand or put your question in the chat. Just logistically speaking, who's invited to take this course? Who's teaching the course? Like kind of what are the logistical and like what's I know it's a 2-year program, right? But what is the time commitment that, per week? How does that look per month? Like for folks that are interested in it?
That's a lot of questions. I'll try to answer all of them. First of all, I'll try to remember all of them. Right? First of all, everyone is invited, particularly men and women. We recognize in our community, we have both men and women leaders. We have men and women serving in a variety of capacities, from Shura board members to teachers to educators, imams, all across the board. So this program is open to men and women in our community, and particularly focusing on that succession planning we talked about earlier. We really want to prepare anywhere from focusing on from 20 to 50 age group. Was skewed toward the younger population, but anybody's invited to participate. Right now, the program opened up for enrollment October 15th and it closed December 24th. We have a range of people that have applied anywhere from their 20s to the 70s. So that's the range of applicants so far. If you go to the website iltdp.com, tdp.com, that website talks about the entire program. It talks about all three components. I just briefly reviewed one of the three major components of the program. We have three components. We have the community leadership component, the Islamic sciences component, which is just as packed as my component, and we have the Imam W.D. Muhammad knowledge body component. So we have three major components that will run in sequence, back to back, each. So during the 2-year course of the program runs for 40 weeks per year. So a total of 80 weeks for the program. Year 1 will be 40 weeks, year 2 will be 40 weeks in 10-week blocks. They will run Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from an hour to an hour and a half per night. And you're looking at a total commitment of time. If you look at time invested, Tuesday night will be community leadership, Wednesday night will be Imam W. Muhammad knowledge body, and Thursday night will be the Islamic sciences component. Our research has told us from our community, we did some research, people are comfortable that would be interested in the program, they're comfortable for taking anywhere between 10 and 15 hours, investing that amount of time per week, 10 to 15 hours. So we structured the program around that feedback. So the amount of time invested will take between 10 and 15 hours per week, total between the class time and assignment and homework time. If you go to the website, to answer the last part of your question, if I remembered all of the parts, all those individuals involved in the program are on the website. So you can look at their bios and look at each team and look at involved in each component.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. I have Brother Bashir Assad's hand up. Brother Bashir, please go ahead and your commenting question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, my brother.
We're grateful to have you on and to explain this program, which I came on a little late. I was on Words Make People prior to they were discussing the critical race theory. But listening to your program, it seems very comprehensive. It lends to an issue or a concept that Imam W.D. Muhammad gave us is becoming more sophisticated. But I do have some questions because it's a very involved program.
Yes.
Who were the developers of this program?
We have a team of people. We actually had about a half dozen people involved as in the program. We've been working on a program for about 3 years. And we started with getting feedback from imams at our imams conference. Actually, we started about 5 or 6 years ago with surveys from imams. Then we had discussions with the imams. And then we created a template for critical skill sets for community leaders and ran that by the imams at our conferences. And then once we did that, then we started developing the program. We actually have spent thousands of hours of development, thousands. I know on our component, we've probably spent over 3,000 hours in curriculum development. That alone, years of research. Most of us, as you know, my dear brother, you can appreciate this. We've been researching Imam Muhammad, the Quran, and his teachings for years. And so we've actually developed thousands of pages of research in that context, but then we have to translate that into a real curriculum model. Mm-hmm. So we spent thousands of hours translating our research into a viable curriculum. And that's been done in those 3 areas. And if you look on the website, you'll see some of the people involved. Go to iotdp.com, you see the entire team. And actually that's the tip of the iceberg because we've had some other people behind the scenes work as well.
Now, my other concern too, because this is a situation that we've had in the community. The Imam, in his efforts to do similar things that this program is proposing, mm-hmm. is to have qualified people that would be able to address these subject matters and be qualified and give something of real value. I think Sister Aisha may have asked that question too about those people who will be instructing and their qualifications and backgrounds in the subject matter? And how has that been developed?
Yes, everyone involved is master's or above, master's degree or above, and with strong educational backgrounds and or roots and connections with our community. So that's the good thing.
Okay. And also, in your development of the program, will there be people of expertise in these areas brought in outside the communities that might lend value to this program? And what are you looking for? How will you be measuring the success of the program and developing it in the future?
Yeah, actually, we have a continuous improvement. We went through a whole planning process for about 1.5 years. We call a program planning model. My background, I spent 30 years in program administration of workforce development, education, training programs. I was blessed with a number of awards nationally and internationally, from presidential awards to international economic development awards, alhamdulillah. So we kind of brought that expertise to this model. And so we have a continuous improvement process that we've employed to get feedback from our participants, to get feedback from our community, and to continue to improve the process. As a result, this year, we're looking at running the first program is going to be a pilot program. And the whole purpose of the pilot is to run the program, but also to really get input from the participants to make sure that we're meeting their needs and tweaking any little things that need to be tweaked before we expand it.
Thank you.
Are there any plans too that this course might be used or can be used as credits towards any higher education certificate?
Yes, actually, in addition to the conveners of exams giving a certificate at the end of the program, we've been approached by some very prestigious universities as a possible partnership to partner with us, but we've kind of put them on hold for the time being because understanding how these programs work, and I've done it for a number of years, you really have to kind of run through the whole pilot process to make sure you work out the bugs and you're creating something that you can be proud of, and it takes time to develop that model. So we're by the midway through that developmental process, but what you can see, we've put a lot of thought. It's very comprehensive. It's very, I think it's historic. This was a vision that Imam Muhammad actually expressed in the year 2000, and pray to Allah, we've been able to kind of work with that vision and pull together all the components with the right people. But at the same time, we're not at the end of the process yet. So we want to continue to work on it, model it, get people's input, their participation, and then we'll be willing to partner sometime in the future.
Thank you so much, Brother Bashir, for your series.
Thank you.
I'm going to shift over to Imam Tariq, and I also have another follow-up question after him. Again, believers, make sure you put your name in the chat or raise your hand. Imam Tariq.
Assalamu alaikum. Imam Bashir.
Assalam, my dear brother.
Thank you so much for the presentation and sharing with the believers what would have certainly not been adequate communicated by me. And also, having the site so folks can go there and be able to get, even more detailed information. I had a few questions, but I mistakenly did not press the hand raise button. So Brother Bashir Assad kind of ran through one of them that I wanted to just kind of bring up to have you speak about. Now, you addressed that, which was with regard to the future projection of the program. And the importance of it, number one. But in terms of taking it back to the presentation that you gave, you talked about how the importance of growth, in multiple directions. Mm-hmm. Is this something, do you see this program at a place, inshallah, where that there are multiple representations of it? Because the internet allows it to be centralized, but possibly where it becomes, where you can have it, masjids as satellites, also, being platforms for the, for this program?
That's an outstanding idea. We haven't thought about that one yet. So praise be to Allah. We're open to evolving, right? And we want to move from stage to stage through a natural progression. So once we master the first phase, which is an internet-based program, which is open to everybody, obviously the parts of the program will be interactive, in which people have to participate online for certain classes. The other parts will be self-directed, where they can go and get it at any point in time and study it and review. So we have a mixture of both interactive and self-directed models. But inshallah, we haven't thought about that one, but I think it's probably in our natural progression as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I have a comment and a question from the Cannon family. Thank you so much for your presentation and all of your hard work. This will be a great benefit for the entire community. How many participants are you expecting or hoping for?
The first year, we're limiting our participants to between 25 and 30, because we want to make sure that the class size is adequate enough to get full participation and to vet the program thoroughly. So it'll be 25 to 30. In future years, we'll expand that. Obviously, in the second year, we'll have the first year students plus the new that will transition to the second year, as well as new first year students. The question is, how many students will be in our second year? We haven't thought about that. We're going to get feedback based upon our model and based upon our pilot, but we will be expanding it the second year.
Excellent, thank you. I have another hand raised from my brother Clyde Elamine. Go ahead and take the mic, Brother Clyde.
President Clyde Elamine.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what to do with that anymore.
Yeah. Once you're president, you're always a president.
Yeah, well, I learned from Imam Warthi Muhammad that it is possible to accept some things from people and still be humble. So I'm trying to keep that balance there, because I do have this community to thank very much for all of those things, that happened, because I went with a foundation that I think very few people had that were around me. You answered most of the questions that I had. So I just wanted to commend you. This, from what I know about educational program development, this is very, 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 very thorough. And I like the idea of the continuous quality improvement element, etc. The only thing I would ask, and this is not about the first run of the program, because I think it's wise to go through the entire program just as you have it structured. Well, will you be able to pull out courses that people may be able to take by demonstrating qualifications other than just having come through the program? Because there's so many segments of this program and courses I saw within this program, and a lot of it is clearly interdependent. But you got a lot of old folks like me that might really be excited about picking up a piece of it, and not necessarily going through the I don't know if it's 24 months or if it's possibly, maybe 18 months when you look at the time into it. I think you get the idea of the concept of my question.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much. And let me say this before I start, because Dr. Elamine is one of my role models. When he retired, he said, because I was retired a few years behind him. He said, "Listen, brother, you're gonna go through a transition." And I remember that to this day. I remember that. It did. You're right. But they pulled me right back into where I was at.
They're not going to let you go, brother. You're good.
That's right. They put me right back into where I was at before I retired. Pray be to Allah. So, yes, no, we're going to be evolving this. And just as you said, we recognize that there are components of this program that people really may want to participate in without participating in the fullness of the Islamic leadership training program. So in the future evolution of what we're doing, we will take that into account. We've already had some preliminary discussions on it. And as you can imagine, we're still in a startup phase of a current program, but we have had those discussions, and inshallah, we probably will be having some form of what you suggested.
Thank you very much, bro.
Thank you.
So with just a few minutes left, you begin us with a PowerPoint presentation to kind of lay out some of the the things that may challenge us and things we need to pay attention to in particular for our community. And one of those was, you know, the aging of our community and the kind of bubbling up of that as a problematic area that needs to be addressed. And then you went into just all the great detail of the leadership program. So if you can close us out by really connecting those and telling us your vision, and I know you're the convener of imams, so your vision is the vision that you've heard from imams from across the country. So what is the overall vision for our community from the conveners of imams?
Well, one of the things, thank you so much, my dear sister. One of the things, one of the qualities of leadership is to be responsive to the needs of our community, right? And so in that context, we've been listening and we also been observing. And as we've been discussing over the last hour, there's a great need in our community to make sure that we're able to communicate the totality of our 90-year experience to future generations. Many of us had the honor and the blessing, and I know in Chicago, I'm speaking to the choir, right, of being around Imam Muhammad physically and learning from him directly. Other generations have not. Younger people in our community have not. And there's a great thirst. I know in some of the feedback, we had a focus group recently, and some of the people in our focus group are in their 20s and 30s. Some of them have never been around Imam Muhammad as we have. And so we have an obligation to really to kind of communicate the totality or as much as we can in a way to, you know, to excite their curiosity and as well as to cultivate a real development in our community. So in that context, listening to our community, there's a need for succession planning. There's a need for inclusion. There's a need to develop a pipeline, a continuous pipeline of talent, skills, and abilities of men and women in our community to continue our community into the future, as you all have done so beautifully in Chicago. So you're a model for us. We thank a lot for what you're doing. And it's an honor and a blessing to talk to all of you. So we're trying to replicate what you're doing in Chicago across the country and create a model for that nationally that everyone can participate in.
Alhamdulillah. Well, I speak on behalf of Masjid Al-Taqwa in saying thank you. Thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for being here with us today and sharing that. And I close with the dua, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Please bless our community to grow in ways that is pleasing to Allah. Please let the work that we do today be of benefit to us and benefit to every generation to come. Oh Allah, please lead us on the path that is most pleasing to you. Protect us, protect our children, protect our women, protect our imams, protect our brothers, protect all of the people in our community and outside of our community so that we are guided on the straight way. Ameen.
Ameen. Thank you all very much, Imam.